going to be Psalms. It's going to be, it's actually Psalms 66, 16 through 20, but I'm going to read part of it and then part of it at the end. So I'm just going to do 16 through 18. Come and listen, all you who fear God, and I will tell you what he has did for me. For I cried out to him for help, praising him as I spoke. If I had not confessed this sin in my heart, the Lord would not have listened. So then I'm going to finish the rest of that when I'm done. So I was born June 19th, 1989 in Kansas City, Miguel. 2 blocks from Arrowhead Stadium. No, I'm just saying Kansas City. So I lived in Kansas City until I was about 15, and I actually had a better life in Kansas City than I did when we moved to Ava. I was 15 when we moved to Ava, and before then, I grew up in a pretty decent family. My dad wasn't around, but we lived with my grandparents, and there was love there. Like, we never wanted for nothing. Every school year, we started with brand new clothes, brand new shoes. I mean, there wasn't nothing I could really complain about my childhood. So when we moved to Ava, I automatically went for the tougher crowd. The ones that were out dirt roading every Friday night, Saturday night. Me and my best friend, we got in trouble together. We got put on house arrest together. We thought we were just too cool for school. We would wear our ankle monitors to school and thought we were cool for it. And now I look back and it makes me mad. But, so like I said, it was just pretty normal up until I was about 15 or 16. I started smoking weed because that's what everybody was doing. That's what you do down there. And it just led to drinking, and so life was just, I just coasted by, basically. I barely graduated high school, not because I wasn't smart, but just because I was skipping school. That's just what we did. It was not any other reason besides I just didn't want to go. It was me and this other girl. She ended up dropping out. And one of the teachers said, Danielle, you need to pay attention, because if you don't realize what you're doing now, you're going to fail your senior year of high school. And I'm like, my senior year? How could I fail my senior year of high school? So I started going to Saturday school, started staying after school, and I graduated on time with my class. So I never was really a pill person. Like I said, I just smoked weed. I hadn't got into meth yet. But when I was 20 years old, I got in a car wreck. I broke my whole entire right leg. Broke my femur bone. My foot was snapped off. I just totally wrecked it. I should not have survived that wreck. Like, my car was like a sardine can. There's been a lot of instances in my life that I should not have survived. You know, everybody says life hasn't given me a fair hand. I feel I didn't give life a fair hand. Like, I just had so many opportunities to succeed. I had so many opportunities to do good, and I just wasted them. And another instance with that, when I was born with 2 holes in my heart. I had open heart surgery at 6 months old. So it's like I was throwing all these obstacles, and like I just surpassed them. It's like I'm just now realizing that I'm here for a reason. So after I had my wreck, I was prescribed Percocets, Hydros, I mean, you name it, they were trying to hand it to me. Like I said, I never was a pill person, so I started selling them. Like, I wasn't taking them, people wanted them on demand, so I made money. I did what I had to do at the time, and I just sold those suckers. Like, it was, it was craziness. So, when I was 23, well, I got with my kids' dad, and I was like probably 21, and he was a real big meth user. I had done it before, but it really just wasn't my thing at that time. I would just see the side effects of it, and I just didn't want to be high all the time. But so I had my first daughter, or I had my daughter at 23. When I had her, I stopped everything. I stopped the occasional meth use, I stopped the weed, I stopped drinking. I wanted to be the mom that my mom was. I wanted to be there for my kid like my mom was. So I got a job, I got a house, I did the mom thing. I was still with my kids' dad, but he was still doing the meth thing. So we ended up, I got pregnant with my son when I was 27. And when I was 7 months pregnant, my best friend died in her sleep. And that's who I got this tattoo for. She was a severe alcoholic. And so that's when I moved back to Mansfield. After I had my son, I was just tired. I was tired of being the one that always worked. I was tired of being the one that always had the house. I was tired of being the one that always had my kids. I love my kids, but there wasn't anybody my age that I could totally relate to that had their kids, that had their car, that had their house, and I was the only one. So it was just like, I watched everybody around me live a carefree lifestyle, and it's like I envied it in a way. But yet then I had these people staying on my couch that envied my life.
Come on. You got this.
So after that, I really started using meth. Frequently, every day. It went from, I couldn't do anything without smoking weed, to it went to, I couldn't do anything without smoking meth. Me and my kids' dad, we finally split ways for good. And I met a guy named Robert. Some of you know him, some of you don't, but he came into my life like a whirlwind. He came in, he was the dope man. I mean, he had it all the time. He just, I don't know what it was, we just had an instant connection, and that's when I started not going to work. That's when I started not paying attention to my kids. Not because I didn't love my kids, but I was just in addiction. It got to the point where I was no longer the one that paid all my bills. Robert was paying all my bills. I was no longer the one that was going to my kids' PTA meetings or just after school things. I would send them with somebody else that was taking their kids. My kids were very strong into church, and I looked to church as a babysitter, to be honest with you. I knew on Wednesday nights, the church van would come get them, they would feed them, they'll be back. On Sunday mornings, the church van will come get them, they'll feed them, they'll bring them back. So life just started getting really heavy, and my life started getting really heavy into meth. Like I said, I couldn't do nothing without it. I couldn't get up. I was called what you call a functioning addict, which is doing it but still sleeping, still eating, still moving, I guess. But then it got to the point where Robert would use like the addiction against me. He'd say, well, if you wasn't high, you'd pay attention to your kids. If you wasn't high, you would have done this or done that. And it's like, I can't blame him. He was in addiction with me just as much as I was in it with him. But we got to the point where my water got shut off. We ended up moving to Warrensburg. 2 days after we moved to Warrensburg, my door got kicked in Mansfield. And we barely missed it. So my son was still in a car seat at that time. My daughter went to go live with my mom in Bolivar because I could take my son around. He was in a car seat. My daughter had to go to school. So we lived in Warrensburg for probably 6 months. Was not good. We ended up moving to Hartville in a house that we were squatting in. We didn't have no utilities. We didn't have water. We were getting water from the guy down the street. We didn't have lights. We didn't have water, but we had meth, And at the time, I thought that was okay because I had my son. And I told him I loved him every day. And I can love my son, and I can still use meth, and I can still do all these things. But at the end of the day, I was so sad. I was so depressed that I was putting my son through this because I knew better. I was that mom that had the house. I was that mom that had the car. I didn't have anything. We were, like I said, we were squatting in a house that these people didn't even know we were in. So it took Robert going to jail for me to get out of that house. So when he went to jail, I picked up where I left off. I got back to work. I started doing right by my kids again. I stopped using there for a while and moved back to Mansfield. It's like, you can't wait to get out of a place, or you want to get out of it so bad, but you get out and you go right back. So I ended up moving to Mansfield, and I got a very nice house. Like, I got a 4-bedroom, 1.5 bath, 2-car garage, out in the country with a trampoline. Like, it was ideal. It was for the first time I was proud of my house. For the first time I wanted my mom to come down and see my house. For the first time my kids had their own room. We wasn't in an apartment. We wasn't in a duplex where I had to say, stop running, stop jumping. I could say, run, jump, do whatever you want. This is our house. So Robert was in prison at that time, but I picked up using meth. I started dating a guy named Kevin that Paul knows. This is how God is wonderful. Like Paul said in his testimony, we were next to hurting each other. Me and Paul did not get along. It was just bad. Anyways, just to backtrack a little bit. Just to backtrack a little bit on how I met Isaac and Andrea. Robert was in the program. He was in the Compassion House, and I came down. And I wasn't in the Compassion House, but I was staying with very good people, Mike and Katie. They accepted me into their home. They opened up their arms to me. Didn't even know me and welcomed me like as if they had known me their whole life. When I first met Isaac, I didn't give him the chance. I didn't give myself the chance to know him. He always said, no relationships, no relationships. And I thought, he's so selfish. Like, how can he not want us to be together? We love each other. But now that I see what it meant, you can't have a relationship when you're not even okay with yourself. You can't have a partner when you don't even love yourself, So things happened, and I left, Robert left. So anyways, okay, back to my house. I had a beautiful house, and me and Kevin were selling drugs out of my house. When people say that they have 2 lives, I feel like I had 4 lives. I had the mom. My kids were always fed. My kids had nice things. My kids were well taken care of. So that was one face. I had the other face of the relationship that was toxic. I don't think I've ever been in a true relationship where it was not toxic. I had the face of what I gave to my mom. Yeah, everything's okay. We're fine, we're fine, we're fine. And then I had this other one of selling drugs. So when you get wrapped up in the drug life, it takes off very fast. Kevin, it started off, I was letting Kevin kind of doing it first. And then he just let his addiction take a toll on him. I say the drugs did him, he wasn't doing the drugs. So then I started selling myself. People like to deal with me better because I treated them right, I guess. So it was just to the point that there was so much drugs in my house. So much drugs. The front part of my house was picture perfect. I loved it. I was proud of that house. The back of the house where my room was, it was like a store. People would come there all hours of the night, all hours of the day to get drugs. It was to the point where I would get up in the morning and somebody was mowing my yard because they knew I would give them drugs. It was to the point when I was working my butt off and couldn't get help to watch my kids. I couldn't pay someone to watch my kids. It was to the point that people were offering to watch my kids for drugs. And it's like, at the time, I'm like, okay, they're watching my kids. I just wouldn't let anybody just watch them, but... So one of the times, someone had called me at 2 in the morning, and they said, hey, can you bring me a bag? And when my paranoia kicks in, it's all hands on deck. I thought, oh, they're just wanting me to get out of my house so they can come rob me. So I loaded up every bit that I had, and I took it with me. I got pulled over. I I threw it right out the window. And like, I'm wide-eyed. My face was so bad, you could have connected the dots and had a picture. The cop asked me, Danielle, are you high? I'm not high. Oh, what are you talking about? I'm not high. He searched the car, there wasn't nothing in there because I just threw it out. I turned around and I pulled over and I walked that ditch line for 2 hours looking for what I threw out. Same cop drives back by and says, Danielle, what are you doing? And it's, at the time, you think it's funny that these cops know your name. And you look back now and it's sad that these cops know your name. So I didn't end up finding it that night, but he knew what I was doing. He knew why I was out there walking the ditch line. So in November of last year, me and Robert, we got pulled over, and we had 2.5 8 balls on us, and we both ended up going to jail. That was the first time I'd ever been charged with a meth charge. I've had weed charge. What?
She wants to know what an 8 ball is.
3.5 grams. It's decent amount. So we and Robert is very, very well known. I mean, way more well known than I was. But he walks up and he's like, Robert? He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm gonna need you guys. And he leaned in, Danielle? I'm like, yeah. So this cop just had this look on his face of, cha-ching, I got him. And he did. He pulled the dogs out. And I'm thinking, they're just gonna arrest him. I'm okay. They just want him, they don't like him, I'll be fine. No, I was not fine. They flipped us both around, arrested us both. And I just was like, well, it happened. Because before, when people would come over and they say, oh, I got caught with this, I'm like, you let them catch you? Like, that's your own fault. If you're that dumb, so let them catch you, that's your own fault. And then finally they got me. And went to jail, and I got out, I was bonded out. First thing I did was I went and got high. I just got in trouble for getting high. First thing I did was went and got high. The person who I got high with, he overdosed right in front of me. I gave him CPR. I had never seen that before ever. To literally watch someone's life leave their body. I had called 911, they got out there. When they got out there, I didn't have time to hide anything. I didn't have time to get rid of anything because I was too focusing on his my friend about to die right in front of me. He didn't though, praise God. But my mom, when I went to jail, she came and got my kids. My mom's had my kids ever since November, so this year will be a full year that I have not been a parent to my kids. And, they still love me. Like, the love of a child is unconditional. So, after that, I was still in denial that I had a problem. Even though I went all these years using, even though I lost my house that I was so proud of, I've lost numerous vehicles, I've lost numerous friends, I've lost the trust of family. I still was in denial that I had a problem because I could stop if I wanted to, but I didn't want to at the time, even getting in trouble. A month or two after me and Robert got in trouble, we got a grand jury indictment, so I'm battling that. And even after getting in trouble in November, I still got 3 more possession charges. I got 2 introductions to the jail. And it's like, I was just on a path of destruction. I was just on a path of threw my hands up in the air and said, you know what, just forget it. But, that's PG version. I think my addiction really got heavy when my grandpa died. Because like I said, growing up, we didn't, my dad was in and out of my life. It's, I always say I'm that even mix of sweet and salty kind of, because my dad was always in prison, but my mom worked out of prison. So it's like I knew better, but who wants to do the right thing? It's so harder to do the right thing than it is the right thing, or the wrong thing. And why I say that I didn't give life a fair chance. My brother and sister grew up in the same house as me. My brother is a manager at Ford. My sister sells real estate. I didn't like to say that I was the black sheep. I like to say I was the tie-dye sheep. And it's like, I was dealt the same cards that they were. I just played them different. They played them the right way. I did not. Like I said, I've had toxic relationship after toxic relationship of, why don't they love me? Why don't I love them? Why? But every time, drugs was in the mix. Every single time. On June 9th, I got pulled over in Wright County. And I thought that was the worst day ever. But now that I know, that was really the best day ever. Because I was taken off the streets. When I was pulled over, I was on my way to go take someone some drugs, and I was doing some other things. They towed my car, which I'm still mad about that, but now that I look back, I'm glad that I got arrested that day. I went to Wright County for 2.5 weeks. So from December to June, I had not seen Isaac. I believe I talked to him once, but I never thought about coming back to Niagara. I never contemplated coming back to Niagara. So when I was in Wright County for 2.5 weeks, when those doors open or those doors close, you jump up to see who's coming in or who's coming out. I stood up when I heard the door open, and probably from me to probably the tables out there, I seen Isaac's face. And it's like in a movie where everything, like you have one main point of clarity and everything else around you is hazy. That's what happened when I seen Isaac. I hadn't talked to him yet. I didn't even know if he would talk to me, but we seen each other. And I just had an overwhelming feel of, I'm going to be okay, even though I hadn't even talked to him. 2 hours later, I get pulled out, put in a room, and there's Isaac. And I'm like, Isaac, I'm sorry. I pled my heart out to him. I pled my case out to him. And one thing that, I will always respect Isaac for many things, but one thing he said was, I'm not going to say yes, I'm not going to say no, I'm going to talk to Andrea first. And that is just something that he wasn't just taking it upon himself and saying yes. He wasn't just taking it upon himself to say no. He wanted his wife's input. So the very next day, I didn't even know I had court. I got pulled out. I went to court and I got out of jail the very next day. If that's not God's divine intervention, I don't know what another example would be. So I get out and I come to the program, and for the first time I want to stay sober. For the first time I want to love God the right way. Because before I'd only pray when things were going wrong. I only prayed when I wanted things to go right for myself. And it's just this church, the Compassion House couldn't have any other name than Compassion House. The Compassion House is the most compassionate thing I've seen. I got a reconnection with God again. I just, there could never be enough gratitude for what Isaac and Andrea have done for me. When we went to, and on the 21st of this month will be my 90 days in the program. The 21st of this month will be 90 days that in over 20 years I have been completely clean.
Amen.
I was here for maybe, 3 days. And I had asked Andrea, I said, Andrea, will you give me a drug test? And she said, I've never had anybody ask me that. She handed it to me. I went and I took it, and it was clean. And I still have that drug test. I cleaned it out, I washed it out, but I kept it, because it's like, I can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. There's just so many other things in my life that has happened traumatically involving drugs that, of course, whenever I was thinking about doing my testimony, I was thinking of it, but now I'm just like, for a long time, drugs was just my main focus. I couldn't do anything without getting high. I couldn't do anything without smoking weed. And it's like, I am 90 days sober. I am 90 days free. I am 90 days free of the chains. Woo! Woo! I just want to love God.
Hey, you know that takes big courage to get up in front of everybody.
Oh, I know. Like, I could sit from that chair and talk all day long, but to stand up here, I'm just like, there's a lot of things that I haven't confronted with myself on. When I was with Robert, it felt good to be with him because he was so protective. He was probably overprotective. He was a lot. Like I said, I felt safe with him. But there was many times that I felt, all right, this is how I'm gonna die. Because it was like, he was just the type that if I wasn't going to be with him, I wasn't going to be with anybody. And I think he fed me in a way of using, like I said, he used my addiction against me. There'd be times that if I wanted to leave, I'd tell him, well, give me a bag before I leave. He's like, I'm not giving you nothing if you leave, but you can have it if you stay. So I would stay. We had put each other in situations that if there was truly love there, those situations would have never came up.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to stand here and say it was all his fault. I did just as many toxic things.
We can remove them toxic things too.
Yes,
We stand
absolutely.
together.
And realizing that they were toxic is the first step. When he got out of prison, he literally came to find me, and I was very, very deep in my addiction. I just felt like I had to please so many people with drugs. Because when you're the one who has the drugs, when you're the one who people are calling to say, hey, do you got this? In a messed up way, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel important. It makes you feel like those people want to be around you. But you know what? There's maybe 2 people that since I've been out that I really cared truly to let them know where I was. When I got my phone back, I was just looking back at all the messages, and I wanted to slap the crap out of myself. Like, just the conversations that I had, just the times of the conversations. I took for granted so many things in my life that I will never get back. All the family functions.
Absolutely.
There's 2 deaths in my family that I couldn't go to because I wouldn't dare show my picked off face. So the first time that I seen my kids since being in the program, my mom said she would be here at noon. Noon rolled by, and I felt such an overwhelming sensation of sorrow because she said she was going to be here and she wasn't. And I just felt all that pain that I had caused my family because I said I would be there and I didn't. I said I'll meet you over there, and I didn't. And I felt all that pain that I unleashed onto them. Because like I said, I grew up in a family that we hugged each other, we loved each other. I was never sexually abused as a kid. I was never physically abused as a kid. So I cannot blame my childhood on anything. If anything, my childhood should have encouraged my growth as a person. But instead, I took the easier route at the time of, like I said, I seen everybody else enjoying life high. I seen everybody else not having to work for anything. I seen everybody else just having a carefree lifestyle, and I wanted that. And at the same time, like I said, they wanted what I had, but I didn't realize that. So like I said, I can't say life hasn't been fair to me. I haven't been fair to life. My kids, they have such anger in their hearts right now that I know I caused. Even though I know my kids are healthy, and I know they're fed, and I know they're loved, they're not with mom. I think they're seeing it as, okay, well, when we lived with you, when we went to church, you wanted nothing to do with it. But now all of a sudden you're so into church, I think I just want to show them and tell them how much, I have, but I just want to show them that I regret deeply wasting that time that I didn't spend with them in church. I regret deeply all the times that I passed them off to my mom because I know my mom is taking care of them. But it's not fair to my mom that she's taking care of my kids. My mom wouldn't want the kids anywhere else but with her. But it is not fair to her that she's having to rearrange her life because I couldn't control mine. I've done some wrong things in my life. And at the time, I didn't feel like I was hurting anybody. We were all having a good time. But now it's like I was hurting myself. I was hurting my kids. I would always just try to put on a smile for anybody that was looking because it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. When really things were not okay. There was so much, my kids have witnessed so much violence. My kids have woke up and got ready for school and had to step over broken glass because I was fighting with whatever guy I was with that night. And then I would just tell them I love you, have a good day at school. And it's like, I think that I just sent them off to school like that with that burden that they had to carry with them on to school. Drugs are evil. We always say, well, if I would have known then what I know now, you would change, but you cannot go back. You got to keep looking forward. Like Isaac says, that's called a rear view mirror for a reason. But so I'm going forward. Like there is so much I wanted to say, but it's just not coming to me right now. But I'm here to say that if you truly want recovery, if you truly want God's love, you don't have to work for God's love, but you gotta work in recovery. If I stood here and said that I don't think about getting high from time to time, I'm a liar. But you know what else? I think about the consequences. I think about going back to jail. I think about losing that trust that I'm barely gaining back with my mom. My mom is a tough lady. I know she's proud of me. I know she is rooting for me, but at the same time, I think she's still waiting for me to slip up. 90 days is nothing compared to 20 years of when I first started smoking weed, when I first started drinking. And it's like, and I just wonder, well, how come my brother and sister never had to deal with this? Well, I put myself in those places. I put myself in those houses. I put myself in those cars that went to go get that. I made those decisions, nobody else. So I'm just here to say that if you want it, you can get it. Like if you truly want it, if you truly desire to be healthy, to be sober, it is possible. And it's hard, but it's hard though. That's why you have to work it. You have to realize that this life waits for nobody. I just want to end with that. So I'm going to read the final verse on this. Just need help. Oh, just a little something. Tomorrow's Christina's 60 days, so congratulations to her. So the final verse is on. Okay. So it's Psalms 66, 19, and 20. But God did listen. He paid attention to my prayer. Praise God, who did not ignore my prayer or withdraw his unfailing love from me. So I just want to say thank you guys, and if you want it, you can get it.